Hey, how's it going? Hopefully you're doing well. We're going to keep trucking on Orion's belts. Last left off at nice assets. Just going to ramble about assets versus ISK. Give it about an hour, see how far we can get. This should be part 8. I'm going to set my little miner to mining while I read. Or maybe not, we'll see. Okay. Nice assets. Like she tells me she does, from the song Nobody by the Crane Wives. Which, love the opening, love how the chorus changes as the song goes on. The first round in that song feels very different from the end. Potent. I like it. Oh, hey. I'm still one system out from Firewalker. I've been working a lot on the next book. And it's not really a book so much as a game collection of missions. I'm really happy with how it's coming along, and it's hard not to talk about it. But nice assets. Cheaper assets are pound for pound more ISK efficient than more expensive, but more effective assets. I say again, more expensive ships are more powerful, but the lower down the hierarchy you go, the more powerful the ISK that went into those assets is. Think of it this way. A battleship is nowhere near as potent as 1,000,000 frigates, even though they would cost about the same in ISK. To put it another way, having access to an action at a price point that can be managed is far more important than having access to the best version of that action. Showing up is a victory in itself. Time spent is skin in the game. Congrats on having it to spend. If the ammo used to kill your ship cost more than your ship did, you are economically defeating the enemy without pulling a trigger. If you can make your opponents move their terribly expensive game pieces where you want them to by using pawns, congratulations, you are playing with people playing with toys, instead of just playing with toys. There is nothing more satisfying than drawing multiple highly expensive vessels out to play using only a rifter. That actually happened to me yesterday. I was flying a rifter 3 jumps out from Jeddah, and I had a slasher drop in with a 50-kilometer point. 50-kilometer range on their warp disruptor. My little rifter is worth less than 1,000,000, the one that I was flying. It was mainly to test content, to see if I could make a mission out of that system, and yeah, I can. Especially if, the answer to a rifter... Well, so the rifter dropped. He killed the rifter right quick when he realized, it was kind of boring just holding me there from 50 kilometers away, and, there was nothing I could do back to him. But I pulled a bellicose out of the garage and threw it at the what was it? Slasher. It was a slasher interceptor. Threw a bellicose at it, and the response was a Brutix to take down the bellicose, but the Brutix couldn't keep up. The bellicose was too fast, so I think it was virtual PGE, at least that was the name, but it might have been someone trying to imitate him. But he came in with a what was it? It was Slasher, Brutix. Oh, an Orthris, like one of those heavy faction cruisers, just to kill my little bellicose. And didn't need to lose the ship, but it was still fun to see what happened. It was fun to drop more bait after I got the first bite. But yeah, folks will drop all sorts of stuff for rifters, and it feels really good. It feels ridiculous to be attacked. Let's see. Yeah, there is nothing more satisfying than drawing multiple highly expensive vessels out to play using only a rifter. Surviving such impossible odds pushes the joy to another level. Hard assets are more consistently valuable than liquid assets. The assets that cannot be lost in combat, worn nanocars, test/modified gear, rigging, have the hardest aspect of all. The test and modified thing, that actually changed. I think you can lose those now. I'm not sure, though. I don't tend to fit with those unless I'm, really playing around. I like to pull from Tech 9. Mark 9 models of anything is kind of peak for what I go for. Unless I really love the ship, then I'll spring for greens. Blues are not worth it. Anything above, like anything into the Omega territory isn't worth it because it's contingent on you paying. And like, I would rather play than spend money on a game. They're infinitely effective, even if they're not as contextually effective as other options. That soft power is priceless, rigging especially. Wealth in the common sense comes from a large stock of assets. For some, it comes with the ability to do one thing very well. For others, it comes with having a variety of potential experiences. For a more in-depth analysis of these two schools of thought, consider checking out The Hedgehog and the Fox by Isaiah, not Bertrand, Berlin. I always get Bertrand Russell and Isaiah Berlin confused. Like, I love Bertrand Russell, the whole, like, essay about Russell's teapot and the mystic and, what was it? It doesn't matter, it's not in the book, sorry. Having the tools needed to build wealth is far more valuable than any asset, but liquid ISK is needed for most operations. Sell above posted market price to build stock, sell below market price to reduce your stock. The more of an item you have, the more clout you have at the table. Think of assets like poker chips if it helps. Tall stack advantage holds even in the slow auction that the player-run market provides. There are certain assets that limit access to other assets. Harvesting equipment is the most obvious pinch point for limiting access to space rocks, but blue exploration scanners are often undervalued because people don't combine operational goals very often. Certain rare minerals and wrecks are gateway objects. Recognize which options items present and which items are useless for you, even if they're highly sought after. Sometimes those items are worth holding on to. Sometimes they're better off being sold, reprocessed, or even destroyed. In general, if you've got something to get rid of, try jettisoning it near a friend. You might not be able to, but if you can, maybe your trash can be their treasure. Intel is the most powerful yet least valued asset. Highlighting systems with rare resources such as condensed spaces or belts is the equivalent of giving anyone who participates a 1,000% bonus to their ability to mine. Seek comparative advantages. Share them to enlist aid. No alpha can carry all them rocks alone. No omega either. Place buy orders for the ore that's less time effective for others to mine and help them waste their time in your service. Giving them a target is a service in its own right. If the intention is, can it ever really be pure? Yeah. Giving them a target is a service in its own right if the intention is pure. It can't ever really be pure, but now we're getting into, like, deep philosophy. I like Scordite. More guns on your side of the scales means less of a threat on the other. Sell below cost to steal money from other merchants. Sell well below cost to compete and confuse those who don't get the prices aren't a static thing based on costs, but an abstraction of desire. Friends don't sell things to each other. They give gifts. Alphas don't have contracts. They don't have contracts. They have the ability to jettison goods or place and fulfill orders. The only gifts an alpha can give come with strings. By making them as light as possible, creative circumvention becomes the norm. Filling out a market is a task too big for an individual. Do what you must first, then what you can. What you want will emerge and surprise you. Building structures takes different parts. Sharing and specializing helps. It is fully possible for each step in an industrial process to offer fair play. No corporation hangers needed. Coordination and communication are hard, is all that's keeping folks back. You can sell things to yourself to set the price where you want it. Your buy orders can double as declarations of intention. Escalate or de-escalate investment in acquisitions as the weeks go by. To drive up prices, put bids higher than the opposition, week by week. You can place multiple bids in multiple markets, too. This suggests interest and movement. One person can look like a whole auction if they hustle. That's the pump. Then, sell however much stock you care to part with. You drive a rate up, then capitalize on the inflated valuation. That's the dump. That's how pump and dump operations work in any economy. Ask your mom how the other kinds work. The market isn't just a really slow auction, it's multiple auctions at once. There are a lot of poles to spin plates on. JITA is nice, but if you play with the levers in other places, you don't need to hit the hub as often as you might think. At least, unless you're looking to spend big ISK on big-ticket items, deliveries are worth the wait. The measures of the assets presented at JITA are a snapshot in time, not an actual evaluation of how useful anything actually is. Shuttles are undervalued, by far. Cornering markets requires knowing the angles folks come at stuff from. Manipulating markets is a process, but with the right leverage, the accessibility of whole niches can be eliminated or blown open for other purposes. Planetary materials are the easy way. Omegas have near exclusive access to the best passive income. With the right planets in your corner, you can literally print lower-level ships nearly for free. With enough stock, players can shift from industry to economancy to push prices below cost and drive away even Omega contenders. Fuel is always valuable, and the most efficient fuel is the mid-range. Heavy water is cost-efficient but not volume-efficient. Plasmoids are volume-efficient but not cost-efficient. Compare the gigajoules produced by a fuel to its neighbors in quality, and then compare the costs if you're looking to top her up. Dad, if you're reading this, I love you. In a healthy market, prices are represented by spreads. Think of them like bets on a craps table. Cover more space, better chance of something kicking off the happy feelings. Alphas can't specialize beyond more than an item or two, but here's how to build a sales spread. Start with a loss leader. You want about a quarter of your stock available at a price below operating costs. You want about half of your stock out and for sale at the value you actually want for it. That last quarter of your goods should be above your expectations. You can adjust the stocks in each position to lean the market more with your mass. You can move the price points around to increase or decrease consistency over time. The same principles apply to taking positions with orders. If you really want to stir the pot, you can put 6 or 7 positions out there and adjust over time based on how the market reacts. Real-life stocks used to work a bit like this, but the game got broken once folks realized how teamwork can rig it. Trade unions, or cartels, if your tongue prefers spicier names, might be able to do the same, given enough coordination. For the higher cost, exclusive items and EVE echoes like certain faction ships, they almost certainly do. In real life, anywhere insurance calls the shots is a good indicator of folks operating more in line with a club than with their own folly-filled selves. Actuarial tables do not recognize how quickly environments can change. Financialization is a circle jerk expecting children. It's what full birds might call a self-licking ice cream cone. The positions are performative, not representative. The only way to fight Hobbes' Leviathan is authenticity, consistency, and a good sense of humor. Spreading positions across different locations can get money moving for any marketeer to start sipping the slipstream. Get enough of a flow going, and you'll never need to pay for Plex with real money again should you so desire. The trick is figuring out what is a good convenience fee and what is wishful thinking. American gas stations sell snacks way over what you could get them for at a supermarket. Sometimes, gas stations will sell those overpriced goodies right outside a market, in literal stumbling distance. The cost of convenience is entrained over time until it is no longer convenient, but a tax on the lazy. Convenience kills culture, every time. To take advantage of this fact, sell minerals at higher prices near where manufacturers are guiding the gears of industry as an attempt to turn the tide. Totes worked for Nero. Minerals are not the only assets this will work with, but they're the most obvious and valuable. Isogen, Noxium, and Zydrine are the most plastic of the bunch. Place orders at above market value to pull supply your way. Sell it above to push. Pay attention to competition, but try not to read too much into it. You might want to leave the lowest price on the market as a stake. Every move applies pressure. Finally, ISK itself is an asset. It's not very good at holding worth, but it will move value better than any other asset as a result. Currencies are liquid in this way. Anything can become a currency. The best are pure translations tossed about by tension and slack across a mimetic landscape. Isk is ait. A mountain of Isk not invested in anything is either gaining or losing value. Most would buy Plex as the measure of Isk's value, but that's a permission slip to play with toys, not a new toy in its own right. Plex's value depends on the time of the month, increasing towards the end, then decreasing towards around the midpoint. I evaluate the worth of Isk in relation to more solid assets based on recovery of investment, but that's personal taste. Everyone has their own, and there is no accounting for taste, because it's more fluid than any currency can keep up with. Seriously, right now, the taste for coffee is starting to overtake my desire to write. When the caffeine fix is satisfied, the discomfort with silence will compel me to take up the pen once more. Nobody sane evaluates the economics underpinning their wants. Who has the time? Liquid assets have higher fluidity to their valuation. Solid assets stay valuable. They're consistent. A rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. To butcher a Mark Twain quote, invest in land, they don't make it like they used to. Old Sammy Riverboat Clemens liked a soft asset as much as the next man, but he had a good eye for the hard stuff too. The ideal vehicle for investing in any solid asset that grows in value over time. The ideal vehicle for investing is any solid asset that grows in value over time. Early on in Eve Echo's history, I played with the value of cat statues to turn a profit. It was a liquid asset that looked solid, which made messing with the markets a treat. Nowadays, if I had to pick a solid asset to invest in over time, the obvious choice would be Plex. But logic of play, military logic really, states that such a declaration and drive might erode that solidarity. For my long-term wealth, there are certain minerals I intend to stock up on. Don't you go investing in them now. I want overwhelming dominance in the market of my choice to make those payouts snappy and strapping. Side note, those folks who invest in gold are obviously getting played, but only if they ever try to collect. Back to Eve Echoes, some items are undervalued because they're a pain to move around. Anything that's worth comparatively little for the amount of volume it occupied before or after reprocessing fits into this category. Some items only come from specific locations. Each empire provides this variety. Andy, buddy, you're all right. You want to see a polar bear? Check this out. Look at that big boy. Look at that big borker. Andy, what are you doing, bud? Ridiculous. Thank you. You're okay. Just cars. Whew. Some items only come from specific locations. Each empire provides this variety. Still, the game needs more of these sorts of limited items. Nullsec is the most commonly explored source of inaccessible goods, but there are faction-specific blueprints, like the Thrasher II or Talwar. Each locational limitation to procurement makes a niche for folks to occupy and expand. Finally, assets don't have to just sit there. Some can be changed from one type to another, though there is always something lost in the translating. Even with that inherent tax, if the end result is more valuable than the translator, who cares? I want my triangular coins now, not later. Every step of processing adds a layer of potentially favorable translation. Folks seem to understand this with the scrap market, having pegged the prices to the process outputs, but other reprocessing materials, at time of writing, are all over the place. This is a trap. Volumetric considerations are why. If an item can be reprocessed into more valuable components, consider flipping those goods. Condensed minerals, for example, do not currently have the price of fuel used in packing those puppies into tight spaces baked in. Yet. Beware, though. Lower margin markets are flooded, and higher margin markets are high risk with high barriers to entry. Aim for the center of mass. The middle path is best, though narrow and winding. Condensed minerals can be reprocessed back to their base materials without spending any energy. This means Their process goes unfairly in one direction compared to the other. Yet, they're often cheaper in condensed form since the game is so whale heavy. Easier to transport means easier to flip, if you can find a buyer. Moving the condensed sugar and spice is more valuable than keeping it. Assets are more attractive in motion. Life is a gamble. So it goes. Roll the Bones by Shaky Graves. Oh, well, so it goes. Well, so it goes. Yeah, take a chance. Unplug that phone. Crash that car, unplug that phone. Yeah, we'll take a chance and roll the bones. I don't remember the lyrics exactly, but I love Shaky Graves. There is a minuscule chance that a meteorite will come screaming through the atmosphere to pointedly crush you like Wile E. Coyote. Maybe a bus or a bullet has your name on it. Maybe it's cancer. Probably it's not death by chocolate, but who knows? Diabetes is a thing. Roll the dice often enough and any number will come up. The goal in buying and selling is to get fish out searching the markets to bite, but not to eat the whole kit and caboodle and take the fun away. Imagine a chance of success indicator for every sale placed. For stuff offered above cost, folks are better off building for themselves. For stuff that costs people less to buy than to build, the odds of a bite go up. There is a near 0% There is a near 0% chance of selling a venture at 2 million ISK. At around 1 million, it's 50-50. Near free, I will take them all because I love that ship and you will have to fight me for them. How's it going?
What's going on, man?
Let's see. Near 0 ISK, I will take them all because I love that ship and you'll have to fight me for them. Pouring ISK into bad bets is how markets stagnate. Folks value the materials now. They should value the experience of making things for use. No ship should sell for more than it would cost to build. Yet, people try. Remember, corporate rates are about 20% below cost. Sell below that, and anyone will bite without much prodding. I've found the sweet spot for moving product to be at about 20% below that 20% corporate rate. Folks will buy and ship from any ITC and still save a buck at that point. Go lower to flow faster. Go higher to earn more. But the flow will slow. The goal of any business is not to need to think about every little transaction, but to ride the market, gaining stock here, liquidating there, and so on. For buying, flip it. That Initiate Acquisition button is the easiest place to go for building stocks, but there's play there too. Filling an order to excess pegs the price at that point for the leftovers. That's not bad for buyers, but it's lost profits for fans of the Ferengi. Thou shalt not follow lost profits. An approach rich with intentionality offers excess and reward even as the process is removed. The majority of profits from manufacture should come from the sale of excess materials. Anything less isn't competition, it's commission. That works greater for higher expense outputs. The margins of return for lower cost gear are satisfyingly easy to snag, but small. The upper end of alpha available ships is the sweet spot. The time needed to build stocks from which to build that alpha top end is shorter the harder you snowball. It's much easier to sell 100 mammoths than to make Omega than it is to sell 500 ventures, if you catch my drift. The on-ramp to any point along the spectrum takes less effort the less folks are fighting for position. Live long in Pilsner. The on-ramp to any point along the spectrum takes less effort the less folks are fighting for position. The way is open. Selling at cost is gambling on the incompetence of others instead of demonstrating the advantage available from a sound workforce. The producers all blasted off into dangerous space and left civilization empty, not realizing that the real blood sport happens where survival isn't guaranteed by a bigger external wallet. There should be a thriving used vehicle market, but it's just me down here making bank, doing the bare minimum. It's near enough to make a madman. I got tall wars need tweaking. This habit ain't gonna feed itself. It's a hustle turning rocks into ventures, into ISK, into a navy. Don't even get me started on my liquid oxygen addiction. I transmute pain into pleasure into pain. This is the product. Omegas get so much handed to them, they've forgotten the pleasure of taking. I want to top the universe and have it scream for more. The game is free. That's consent. That's an invitation. I'm going fishing for whales. Care to join me? I am building for effect. You get out what you put in. I want food. I'm planting seeds. That costs time and effort. I sell a saturated market ventures at 666,666 ISK instead of the break-even point of giving them away for free. How low can you go? Maybe you can limbo harder than me. I invite you to try. My goods don't sit on shelves. I sell at a loss, but the flow allows freedom now and now and now. Industry isn't about profit. It's about service. This heart pumps plasmoids. These hands throw cringe. I can afford it. I made it myself. The loss is a self-imposed tax in offering. The gains are unexpectedly great because the odds are malleable. There is a spectrum between light and dark. The brightest beacon pays to give. The darkest void takes at every expense. Here we are, between the gutter and the sun, cooking and freezing at once. It was a pleasure to lose, dear fish. You are released. Grow strong and multiply. Love will kill you as it gets you fed. Sell you later. Andy, a big goof. Excuse me. Relative wealth. The Man Who Sold the World by David Bowie, covered by Nirvana. The person satisfied with the least is the wealthiest. It really doesn't take much variety to spice things up. When a market trends to two options, it's an indicator that the common denominator's tapped for brain power. The minimum experiential requirement to sustain a niche is the point where diversified investment in alternatives is ripe for the taking. If a third option gets a grip, it will overtake the other two before shattering into a whole mess of smaller, more interesting options as no monopoly can stand for but a moment. The one on top before being overtaken gets broken, while surviving second place becomes the first of the future. Happens every time. Memetics as a field documents this behavior in depth. The trick to getting through such transitions is to recognize that no hierarchy is an island. The second best root beer on the market makes the best mixer for floats. The second best floats on the market become the best mixers for Moloko with knives, me droogs. Put another way, all any jughead needs is a Betty and a Veronica to be caught between. Team Vampire or Werewolf works as well. Coke and Pex. Andy, buddy, you're okay. It's all right. Hey, come here. Andy, come here. Let me love on you a bit. Hey, you big bear. There you are. Thank you. Put another way, all any jughead needs is a Betty and a Veronica to be caught between. Team Vampire or Werewolf works as well. Coke and Pepsi, Chick-fil-A and Raising Cane's, and so on and so on. Once one dilemma is settled, the choice moves on and becomes business versus pleasure, then something else in turn. The key to happiness is to pick the lesser good every now and then, and make sure priors are accurate. Game theory recommends defection from the norm around 10% of the time as optimal, but Gabe theory says the more, the better. What truth may destroy had it coming. The truth is never the poles. The extremist position on any dilemma is about as wrong as humanly possible more than half the time. The more extreme, the more likely it is to be fatal, if not terminal. The person pleased with what they have has the first step towards happiness, if not joy. Gratitude is great. Being grateful for the opportunity to grasp it more is greater. A slave in nullsec may be wealthy enough to be a king in high, but where do they spend most of their time? How is that time spent? Chains of gold and morphite are still chains, my friends. The real advantages go to those that can adapt with the times. Null is stable. High is uncontested. At present, low security is where the action is. Where is it going to be in the future? Velocity of money is a measure of pace for living. Too fast and you're desperately trying to stay solvent. Too slow and you're glacial. There are whales out there living their best lives by making billions on the regular. There are new players yet to make their first million ISK. There are people like me who farm T4 bases with the same regularity relationships slip into at that slow burn point where next steps come into question. The wise person will recognize that the functional stakes are independent of the emotional stakes, Wealth is relative. Mass has inertia. The more stuff comes to a specific spot, the more stuff will need to be removed from that spot should circumstances change, as ever they do. Wealth has weight. The flow of assets to their forever homes is best measured through pools. There will come a point where the accrual of goods exceeds the ability to part with those goods. This is the merchant's ideal. Having staging points to manage that wealth grants options. In military terms, the concentration of assets is a parallel to concentration of force. The goal of merchants to be selective about where their assets are based. This is marketing. That is marketing. With all market forces concentrated in JITA, thinner supply lines from null to other ITCs have the advantage. T10 resources are cheaper than T7 because that's where the farmers have confused instant ISK with overall value. Tritanium buys at 1 ISK and is sold at 2 because the market is saturated. Morphite is silly expensive and stable in that silliness. The closer you get to the extremes, the more saturated the market becomes. This makes the areas with the most opportunity smack dab in the middle. Optimizing to farm T5 to T7 scanners, modules, ores, and so on is where alphas stand to benefit the most from the least investment. Don't tell the whales. Andy, it's a car. You're fine. Market signal manipulation is key here. Selling cheap, but not too cheap from the outskirts, or high, but not too high from the center, is how to wiggle prices where you want them. As more free players recognize the relative ease at which they can grab wealth, the odds of Omegas looking for action in those arenas instead of hiding out in the higher tiers increases. In order to play in the kiddie pool, they will need alphas as cover. That is, if they don't lean into flying cost-effective as well. Affordances of balance are as relative as wealth. Goober, you're okay. Exploration. Whole new section. I can't take any one of them home because I've got to leave this all behind. It Gets Cold by Eliza and the Bear. It gets cold in the night. I'm on my way back home. Players can explore from the word go. It's just tedious and not obvious. Grab a ship you don't mind losing with a decent cargo bay size and go somewhere you've never been. Do this long enough and you'll find places you frequent can become unfamiliar with time. Wander. Go where the people aren't. The planets are beautiful. Little details lend life to the sterility of the stars. Imagine new constellations. Remember that an AU is an astronautical unit, the average distance from the Earth to the Sun. Consider the scale of that for a moment. Light is the fastest thing in existence. It takes light about 8 or so minutes to travel 1 AU. Consider the light year. Feel tiny? Go where the people are. See if you can't discover the active trade routes and where the choke points are. Try and get past them. Talk to the locals. Some are friendly enough. If they take you to Discord, cool, that's a pretty fun game to play too. Try not to get lost in narratives. When you do get lost, try to enjoy the experience. How are you is almost always an excellent start. Complimenting sweet-looking nanocores is fun and easy and feels nice too. You get out the love you put in, but not always from where you expect. Most deep null whales Understand the value of silence. Don't expect responses from them or bots. Remember, robots need love too. It's pointless to resent unconscious functionality in others. It's there in the self too, no matter how hard we might strive for otherwise. Keep an eye out at gates and high combat areas like incursion locations for wreckage. Wandering in a pod works for this. Pirates and their anomalies will leave pods alone, so feel free to survey and set up safes if you're just a little guy. Still, running around naked like that is rude, so don't be surprised if you get spanked for it anyway. There are plenty who will pop a pod as a matter of courtesy. Check planets for unattended loot. The only interaction alphas have with planetary production comes through the permission, explicit or implicit, of omegas. Planetary interaction is poorly used by most omegas. They should be leaving containers out to maximize the time their planets are producing. The same mentality behind can mining applies here. It is possible to ignore limits to gain an advantage over others in the market. If a planet ever reaches maximum, it stops producing. A planet that stops producing has stopped being profitable. It's tough to let things go. The folks who've gone past that point are fine with this loss, considering the reduction in risk it provides, if they're conscious of the loss at all. It's not double or nothing, it's potentially double, or just what would have been had anyway. Find new and interesting ways to be destroyed. Do your best to survive, but flirt with death long enough, and you're going to get concluded. You're going to die anyway. Let it change you. Enjoy the change. That's growth. It will hurt. That is growth too. To die laughing is the highest aspiration of any living soul. The arc of gravity's rainbow is the roller coaster. Smile. Everybody's watching. Blue Scanners. Adventure by Be Your Own Pet. Mechanically endorsed exploration becomes available at Tech Level 7. There are 2 types of scanners available to go to an alpha, wide or blue, and narrow or red. Uncharted Space comes in cherry and blueberry flavors. Both types use a minigame to force explorers to go helmet down for a bit. Make sure you're safe before you start analyzing signals, especially in null. Being in warp helps, but not as much as being cloaked. Blue scanners will reveal nihilist spaces and pirate sites. The sites get most of the love from explorers as they can be plundered relatively quickly. There are special loot boxes in those sites that can be decrypted using mid-slot analysis equipment. Analysis is a game too, but not one with much input. The costs for the best exploration gear are purposefully and prohibitively expensive, as they grant access to higher-end blueprints, special secret trafficking container lottery-style loot boxes, and data needed for reverse engineering blueprints. Most of these things are more easily bought from the market. Some special sites come with asteroids for miners. These seem to drop more ancient relics than others, but there's no way to survey them alone, so who knows? Even so, waiting for other explorers to happen along is more productive with a mining laser passing ore into a can. It's fishing for trouble, but that's content. Killing explorers can pay far more than most forms of piracy, but it's a high-risk, high-reward activity. You can hide things in boxes. Ancient remains and debris or data sites allow you to drop stuff inside. The latter two will disappear when the signal does, though the ancient remains will remain anciently. It's easier to just jettison the goods, but sometimes it's nice to know you can hide things without having to put your name on the hiding place. Nihilist space is a bit harder to enjoy, but far more valuable for an alpha. Dead spaces are special dungeons that require teamwork to complete. They are highly sought after by groups with the means to take them down. As discussed in the section on mining, condensed spaces are built for small ship action. While higher level zones allow bigger ships in, they are a death trap should a gang stumble across any vulnerable fatties. Hell, even a single rifter can be a threat to any ship unprepared in a place it cannot jump away from, especially if the rifter has friends. You can share systems that have special locations in them using the Inform tab of the hamburger menu in chat, but it's more effective to share a bookmark directly onto spaces you intend to share. When you inform, all it does is tell folks that it's there, not where it is exactly. Share in local. Share with your corporation or alliance. The more locations in common areas are popped, the more will arise in out-of-the-way places, where explorers like us want them. There are few things as delicious as finding a corral of T4 to T7 condensed spaces ripe for the picking in a dead-end system right under a hostile corporation's nose. Taking the rarest rocks only to share the information as you scoot on out the door might be petulant, but so is claiming territory with no intention of using it. Besides, I saw it first. Yeah. Red Scanners. Dancing in the Dark by Bruce fucking Springsteen. While most consider red scanners to be expected for PvP, explorers can find them quite useful for surveying the level of activity in any given system. Pretend for a moment in-system chat logs don't exist to show who is sharing sunlight with you. This is the case for an alpha and null, but it is a scenario common in low and high security spaces as well. Folks camp in stations. There are cameras on coastal gates. Not every name in chat is legitimate. Being able to gather intelligence on player activity in an area can help you if you want to find other pilots or avoid them entirely. That's the main deciding factor for any exploration-based op. Systems with a surplus of stations, each featuring a different corporate tag, might be harmonious little mixed hamlets, or they could be vulnerable to a bit of percussive renovation. I swear, officer, I have no idea where the syntosis came from. Honest. Fortizars are fine status symbols. They are also indicators for a lot of investment in an area. Where there is investment, there are planets pumping goods into space. There are folks in need of friends, enemies, and targets. When red scanning systems, it helps to know how many signatures are supposed to be there. Zooming in on the system map instead of analyzing each signal in turn can help winnow out the space stations too. Experiment or move along free as a cloud. Of course, there are always malicious goals. Stealing rewards from rat farmers isn't illegal. They're stealing them from pirates in the first place. If you can consult them beforehand, all the better. But a stealth craft in the right time and place can tap those boxes as readily as George Clooney at any age. There is something to be said for causing fighters to scramble after a ship as innocuous as a frigate or destroyer. Most players either don't get the value in economy of force, or are in such a higher bracket that their pride outmatches their sense. They are hungry, but never for a potential loss, and so all they do is lose. See the yard dogs come running if a slow boat with a micro warp drive out to visit rather than invest in something able to red scan down a cam. See the yard dogs come running if you slow boat with an MWD out to visit rather than invest in something able to red scan down the cam. If a single character can tie down multiple characters for a prolonged period of time, who dictates the nature of the conflict? If they spent all that money to kill, but you're able to jerk them around and survive, who is winning? Everyone. The answer is everyone. Everyone is winning in a dance in the dark. Rigging the game. It is the greatest of all mistakes to do nothing because you can only do little. Sidney Susurrus Smith. Exploration can help you gather rig blueprints, but they're easier to buy. Don't buy out the market, though. The prices will stay low if folks don't recognize the demand as it occurs. Except you should totally buy out the market, then sell it back at a higher price. You can leave a lone loss leader ahead of some fatty snacks to make statty facts. Place orders to drain supply further. Do both. You can control the options people have at hand. Why not? Why participate in a society where the finish line is a mortgage? You will own nothing. Enjoy it while it lasts. The data economy needs you. Save up the findings, then splurge in a series of mass productions for a sense of satisfaction from passive action. Integrated rigs are the first real pinch point on what you can pull off as an alpha. But you can pull all sorts of blueprints in low and high sec. T1 rigs are great. They go on most of my vulnerable ships, but also see use in odd experiments. The old nanocore system had good options for off-build experiments. Rigs fill that niche now, for the most part. I throw T2s on my more limited-use vessels and tend to use T3s only on a case-by-case basis. Higher-end rigs are the easiest to sell, but the hardest to lose. The lower the level, the easier it is to buy or build in bulk. Buying bulk lower-level rigs is based. Even if I have no intention of using them, flipping them is a good practice for manipulating margins. There are some that are always in demand, but if folks don't have a point of reference, they will often go with the price set. With enough of any stock, it's possible to tell the market what to pay instead of listening to what others on the market say. Finally, it's fun to make wrecks and use them to make rigs. Specializing to farm T4s, T5s, or higher level bases makes one less effective at the other levels. Buying and reprocessing wrecks outside of your operational specialty is better sometimes. Remember, there is an inherent value to any items that offer choices in their use. Utility has value beyond the individual uses. You are a tool-using creature in a universe filled with objects far more valuable than the sums of their parts. Buy all the rifters. The best use for wrecks is to research ship blueprints or turn them into equipment or play the market with them when you've built up enough stock to create a backstop at a higher price, or really lean in and try to capture a niche. Or is better than or more often than not. Games are interesting choices. Take an interest in choices and anything becomes a game. The blueprints and data gained from exploration seem linear on the surface, but any tool that enables the development of other tools is far more valuable than it might first appear. At least, that's what I keep telling the mirror, ladies. Mid-strategy. Telephone number by Junko Ohashi. Telephone AU. The best explorer ships have 3 mid-slots. The best explorer hunters only need 2. To see all and do all requires 4 mids with specialization. Alas, the Noctis is an Omega ship. Exploring as a team allows folks to share the risk and support one another. The special site rewards are hard to spread around. The nihilist spaces are more than any single player can consume. Feasts abound where folks look only for fast food. Don't be a bottom feeder, unless you like the taste of pennies. Getting a fleet together is difficult outside of an active corp. Hell, it's difficult inside an active corp, as most folks prefer to farm, as that has the least cognitive demand. Then, there's the issue of specialization. Most players don't have designated exploration vessels just lying around, even if they are naturally the best rescue craft. A heron or an imicus walk into a bar. The heron saw it coming, but the imicus took it anyway. Jokes aside, 2 exploration vessels, Hey, welcome back. 2 exploration vessels, frigates, with the 4 mids shared between them are far more effective than any single ship could be. Except for the Noctis. I miss my Firefly. 2 ships in tandem can cut the time it takes to search a space in half. A squad covering constellations can survey whole regions with little effort. Scanners and seekers take up the same spaces required for other non-violent mods. Debuffs, like warp scramblers, disruptors, and defensive E-war, are not essential for combat effectiveness, but they can be force multipliers. This means scanner ships are almost always at an inherent disadvantage. Most Omegas overcome these limits with overwhelming firepower. Alphas can't. However, just adding an escort or gang of escorts is enough to receive the same benefits at a fraction of the costs. The solution is to mix objectives for individual ships, but mix and match for fleet compositions worth gambling on. Getting used to flying with suboptimal fits is an alpha's bread and butter. Transport ships without scanners are silly. Miners stand to benefit in the same way, especially if they're glorified rock transports. Ranging rat hunters can find all sorts of unattended goodies in hostile territory. Without access to chat and null security, alphas looking to make or avoid trouble need to note the operative word in that concept is the looking verb. A touch of explorer can benefit any ship, even if they're not specialized for the task. For one thing, it's easier to keep an eye on a journey through uncharted space when the goal is to, chart it. For another thing, fuck you, I'm right. The map is not the territory. Hungry for the wisdom that the animals held in their hands, Lost in Space by Foster the People. If looking for untrammeled ground, there is no better teacher than experience which routes get the most trade. However, experience costs more time than most have to pay attention for. You could ask around. There is an alternate route past the MO Gate camp 2 systems away. Serpentis Prime has 2 choke points, making it the hardest ITC to operate out of. Somebody could write a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe for all the implicit routes and roadblocks on offer. Learning from others takes time and doesn't stick as easily as learning from others for others. The choke points camped by blockades are rarely the only access points into the black, but finding a way around involves finding the blockage in the first place, often with your face. Trouble with asking around is that it spreads the word to folks you ask. As alternate paths become more popular, blockades shift to match. I never once asked for help and received an easy time for it. Someone else doing it for me wasn't help. Someone telling me what I was doing wrong wasn't help. Someone telling me what to do was more often than not the wrong answer. When it wasn't, it was beyond my capabilities without practice and preparation. Help never comes. Never. Once. Maybe you'll have better luck. It is better to ask anyway, but expect to learn on your own, no matter what. Maps help. The best tool outside Echoes is Dotlan, but that is focused on Old Eden instead of the new Eden. External tools never have the most up-to-date information, such as ships killed in the last hour. There are 2 in-game options at time of writing. They've changed this since I wrote it. The star charts can display all sorts of info through filters, but not all at once. The star map is NetEase's next iteration, but it is slow loading and resource intensive. That's actually changed. I think they optimized it. It's pretty good. I prefer star charts, but your mileage will vary. My opinion has changed on that. It's tough to look at the spaghetti of names, nodes, and lines and see terrain. For better or worse, there is no way to truly gather intelligence needed to navigate in dangerous waters without dipping a toe in. For example, there are many systems that have their jump gates anchored to a nearby planet. These are great for escaping interception teams, as jumping to the planet or the gate allows a slower craft to mix up any chasing faster craft. Jumping to the planet is usually the safer path, as it provides a shorter hop at a shallower angle onto the gate, offers a vantage overlooking any potential camps, and can occasionally bait enemies off the desired gate. It's really funny when that happens. The shapes of constellations can provide plenty of information for savvy explorers to take advantage of. Whether or not the goal is to go where other people don't, the arterial flows between ITCs, the veins between active player-owned space and the lines to Jita, the galaxy's heart, are tough to gauge without surveying the territory firsthand. Even so, here are a few rules of thumb that help in gathering interstellar secrets. Dead ends are explored far less frequently than any other type of section, but are also often the most heavily defended locations in the far depths of the universe's borders. Depending on the security level of the dead end, exploring it can either be a high-risk, high-reward option or low-risk, high-reward scenario. Choke points are obvious loci of control. Those systems are generally safe except for the gates where blockades await prey. There are exceptions. There are always exceptions. 3WE TAC KY, codename Jelly, is a choke point that doesn't look like a choke point. It's one of 2 main paths between Serpentis and Concord space and is almost always camped. Plenty of Anciblex gates bridge that bitch, but none are open to the public, which is money on the table. They really should open those up. They'd make a lot more profit and, advertise that shit. There are gates that are impossible to break through without overwhelming firepower. I'm not sure if this has changed since smaller craft were buffed. Their effective HP is a lot higher than it used to be when I wrote this, but even just showing your face next to a bodyguard craft was enough to get insta-deleted for some of the earlier ships. Players will post up with heavy interdictors bubbling out to 100 kilometers from the gate and a bodyguard vessel and just delete anything smaller than themselves, all to burn the fuel and pass the time. The main entrances to Ethereum Reach commonly have this sort of setup. Don't choke on those points. It is the point I keep choking on. Don't choke on those choke points is the point I keep choking on, Long lines of systems with 2 exits form pipes. The longer the pipe, the more systems to check along the highway. However, these are great places to intercept other ships, especially towards the middle. Keep an eye out for pipes which produce alternate paths that autopilot avoids. Take the road less traveled. These are your money makers as an explorer. You can hit them and keep moving without having to backtrack. Plus, they're often even less frequented than dead ends. Systems with more than 2 exits, the more the better, are the safest locations to operate in, as they have the most means of escape. If they have stations for hiding in too, they are great places to live. Knowing this, player hunters will often haunt such hollow hopes. Finding a location like this in the midst of an active player population is the dream. However, such systems are more secured than other spots, making them less sought after by farmers who fancy themselves conquerors. Look for tools that allow you to break free of the warp gates. Being able to cut out jumps from a route reduces exposure to risk. Most Ansiblex gates are permission restricted, but you can make nice to open ways at a cost. Sunchaser nanocores are especially wonderful. The best scanning minigame available comes from green scanners. These delightful donuts rarely drop from secret trafficking containers and are treasure maps. The encounters at their destinations might not be worth the cost of entry, but occasionally they pay off. Bring friends. The trouble with exploration is that it's both a highly solitary and group-dependent set of prospects. Secrets are only valuable until they are shared. Even so, there is no telling what lies beyond your station's bounds without taking a gander. Exquisite Corpse. You should have known better when now there's no one to blame. Exquisite Corpse by Watsky. Awesome rapper. Convenience kills culture. Culture creates convenience. This is the cycle of civilizations. Anything an independent pilot can do, corporations can do better. However, once you know how they are run, it's not hard to think of the universe as your own personal corporation. In that way, any neighborhood is my corporation. Alphas cannot use contracts, hangars, missions, and so on. Corporations are really more like savings accounts as an alpha. They can withdraw coppers from corp coffers with permission. Without the ability to pull funds, it's hard to say what they offer to an alpha other than a flag and a reduced tax rate. Earlier chapters I said don't worry about taxes. Anyway, back to it. Once you create your own corporation, you can ignore the tax rate entirely, but that is not recommended. Despite all that, corporation bookmarks are extremely useful. They are more useful when shared. Remember how naming things personalizes them? Corporations can name locations to provide a shorthand. Most use little informal nicknames in external communications platforms. Formal but interesting code names in corporation bookmarks can be far more effective, especially if they provide step-by-step routes, key resource planets, safes, rally points, and even points of sales. The details for any bookmark can allow for instructions. Describing Clover ITC with sell 60 ventures at 666,666 ISK here is a mission. Rainbow Road Midway Dead Drop is a waypoint. Corporation bookmarks can serve as contextually tagged message boards in a way similar to Dark Souls. The corporation mission system allows for a lot more granularity. You can create mini-games, buyback systems, and more contextually restricted bookmarks, but ultimately, everything you can do as an Omega you can do by jumping through a few extra hoops as an alpha. Alphas can get around not having contracts or access to hangars by initiating and fulfilling acquisitions in the ITC markets for product handoffs. Inconvenient is fun. Anyone can set a price for interfering with these hyper discounts to go off. Good communication counters such counterplays. External communication platforms like Discord are nice games, but communication theory suggests that the more vectors introduced to a signal, the more diffused the message becomes. I love playing Discord. I love playing Eve Echoes. I cannot play them both at the same time, moment by moment. Voice communications help, but are rarely essential to an in-game operation. Pings in fleet chat can often do just as well. As most corporations accurately estimate, many apes together strong. Getting a bunch of folks together using fear is easy. Doing it with love takes a lot more little things that add up to a harder time overall, but an inevitable one. We can't help it. We do little things to help others because they feel great. Sharing personal bookmarks is a start. The corporations that follow that lead will gain a significant advantage over the ones that don't. In toxic corporations, the leaders have inflexible doctrines. The workers have outputs that need purpose. It's bots on bots, each following a program for maximum efficiency in an arena meant to avoid thought or engagement. Fear leads each. Fear is the mind killer. Folks get burnt out on fear if given a chance to reflect. Emotions pass in silence and stillness. We exhaust, and fear gives way to acceptance through humor or kindness. Movers and shakers can stir it back up using their fear, but ultimately, they run out of juice too. Alpha life breaks through many fears. Sacrificing effectiveness for ISK efficiency in the name of content is tough. It's a kind of surrender to the moment and the options at hand. Growing stronger feels, in most ways, like being weak, as the road ahead stretches unto eternity. Finding ways to make the most of the least ain't nearly so flashy as doing the least to get the most. Alphas have more fun. Burnout is only a threat for a fire that runs too hot. Corporations allow players to flare up through the tiers to where they think the game is, only to find the top is slower, riskier, and without point when making point stops being the goal. They hand out battleships. They call that helping new players. The heart behind such white elephants might be in the right place, but the ISK efficiency is very much not. Major corps run protection rackets and call it rent. Don't waste your time working for those that are not guaranteed to work for you. And there's always a bigger fish. If you have to pay them to be your friend, are they really a friend or just a hooker in a spaceship? Do not serve those that will not serve you. Seriously, I've seen folks light themselves on fire for those that wouldn't piss on them to put it out. It's more fun to treat those that act like NPCs as if they are NPCs. If people don't ask how you're doing, they don't care about you. Caring about them is optional. When just starting out, find a low-tax corp and ignore them, unless you're interested in actually collaborating on builds. You'll find most whales are primarily interested in nullsec politics and ego farming. Most whales have corps for conversation, which is pretty sweet, but they will try to convert you to their ways. This is true even for corps that advertise as industry-focused. That's good news because low to no competition at the upper reaches of what alphas can aim for produces a more forgiving climate for experimentation. Everyone thinks they know the best way to do things. The trouble is, there is no contextually blind best for us mere mortals to suss out. That makes everyone simultaneously, frustratingly, pre-actually right and wrong. Call us Schrodinger's cattle. All we can do is our best. If more high-level corporations took a new Game Plus approach to content creation, training, and equipping the universe, they'd find fleet sizes swelling over time. Corps don't get the only votes. This is content. I will be making more. You can join me if you like. Corporations operate by offering 80% market value on ore and resources. You can encourage independent trade by offering a better rate and flipping the goods above momentary market value. This serves to both undermine corporate holds while raising value slowly. It's pressure. Plus, as your stock grows, you calm the volatility of the market. Even better, you have the option of liquidating to bail should you decide to open a new enterprise. Life gets silly when you get into mind games. Say, in an effort to undercut the competition in selling a resource, you bring the price near your maximum purchase order. It gets very tempting to buy more stock at that lower price when your goal was to sell it in the first place. There are two wolves in us each, and they're both moon, stupid coy dog monsters. With the corporations funneled into a few traders, the market becomes malleable at those middle points. You can influence a galaxy without much more than a few hours' effort and the knowledge of where to push. It's a moving target, but the bullseye doesn't blink. Corporations of like-minded individuals will have like-minded effects. Find your tribe or make it. You're welcome in mine if you say, please. Oh, blah, blah, blah. We have reached Orion's belts. This is where I talk about my corp. But we're at the hour point, and my throat's getting a little dog-tired. Plus, I miss that big old polar bear. I kind of want to go love on him for a bit. So I think I'll call it here. From nice assets to Orion's belts. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good day.